From the moment she could string thoughts together, Marina had imagined being a mother. Not a princess, not a celebrity, just someone with a child in her arms, singing lullabies and whispering promises under the hush of night. At 20, with no partner and little family, she turned that yearning into a career. As a nanny in the coastal town of Invershore, Marina quickly built a reputation for warmth and devotion. She loved each child she cared for as if they were her own, yet when their mothers came home and wrapped their arms around them, Marina often turned away, forcing a smile to hide the flicker of envy in her heart. She waited for her turn. At 23, Marina met Gabriel Mateo, a landscape architect with a crooked smile and a poet's soul. They met at a community garden fundraiser, where Gabriel spilled lemonade on her shoes and then offered to buy her a new pair, or plant her a tree instead. They fell fast. Long walks, quiet dinners, shared dreams. Both had come from fractured families and yearned for the same thing, home. Within a year, they married under a weeping willow, surrounded by close friends and the children Marina had once cared for. They spoke of children constantly. Baby names scribbled in journals, books on parenthood stacked beside their bed. Gabriel would rest his ear on her belly and whisper jokes to the children they hoped would grow there someday. But the months passed, and no child came. The diagnosis felt like a storm: severe ovarian insufficiency. Marina's chances of conceiving naturally were slim to none. She was devastated, but determined. Fertility treatments began: injections, hormones, sleepless nights spent reading forums and tracking cycles. Each failed attempt chipped away at her spirit, but Gabriel remained her anchor. "We're a family already," he'd whisper, "but when the time's right, someone will join us." 2 years later, Marina woke up one spring morning with nausea and a quiet fluttering hope. The test turned positive in her trembling hands. She screamed. Gabriel dropped the breakfast pan. They both cried, holding each other in the kitchen, surrounded by cracked eggs and sunshine. The pregnancy was a song. Marina spoke to her growing belly daily, narrating the world, making promises, singing lullabies she made up on the spot. Every ultrasound, every tiny kick, felt like a miracle. They chose the name Leo, a name full of light and courage. He was born on a quiet, snowy night. With midnight black hair and enormous, curious eyes, he looked like the moon had kissed him before letting him go. Behind his left ear was a tiny crescent-shaped birthmark. Marina whispered, "You were always written in the stars." The first few months were bliss. Marina left her nannying jobs and dedicated herself entirely to Leo. Diaper changes, midnight feedings, lullabies until dawn, every moment sacred. Gabriel doted on them both. Evenings were spent on the porch swing, Leo nestled between them, as they dreamed aloud about his first steps, his future school, the treehouse they'd build together. Then, one warm afternoon, the world broke. Leo was 8 months old. Marina bundled him into a stroller and walked to the neighborhood market, the same one she'd visited 100 times before. He giggled and babbled as she handed him fruit slices, pointing out apples and oranges with wide-eyed wonder. She stopped to inspect a crate of fresh peaches. Turned her back for 5 seconds. 5. When she turned back, the stroller was gone. Panic surged through her chest like fire. She screamed his name. Shoppers turned. A security guard rushed over. The entire market sprang into chaos. But Leo was nowhere. The police came. Footage reviewed. No clear suspects. Witnesses offered vague statements, nothing useful. Marina clung to Gabriel as the hours passed in slow-motion horror, her mind breaking beneath the weight of disbelief. It was as if her son had evaporated. The days that followed were unbearable. Flyers posted. Local news segments aired. Search groups organized. Gabriel stood beside her for every interview, every press conference, but each day without a lead pulled them further into despair. Marina blamed herself endlessly. If only I hadn't looked away. The thought played on repeat until it drowned her. The pain did not soften. Weeks turned to months. The town moved on. Neighbors stopped making eye contact. Some whispered, others blamed. A few, cruelly, implied negligence. Marina barely slept. Her dreams were filled with Leo's laughter and the rustle of his baby blankets. She kept his crib untouched, a shrine of soft toys and baby lotion. The grief carved her down to nothing. Gabriel tried to stay strong, but grief wore on them differently. He grew distant. Their conversations dried up, punctuated only by arguments or silence. Blame settled into the spaces between them. 2 years after Leo's disappearance, they divorced. On the surface, the papers said irreconcilable differences. In Marina's heart, it said, broken beyond repair. But she never gave up. After the divorce, Marina began a slow, desperate pilgrimage. She visited orphanages and shelters, sometimes pretending to be an interested adopter, sometimes showing photos and begging for help. Most times, she walked away empty-handed, but she kept a journal, every name, every address, every child with black hair and dark eyes logged with trembling hope. Then, one rainy afternoon in a neighboring county, she heard whispers of a discreet child placement center with a suspicious reputation. No government ties. High donation requirements. Untraceable records. Marina felt a jolt in her spine. She went. Pretended to be interested in adopting. Smiled when asked for money. Asked about records. And left feeling sick. The facility's evasive answers, the inconsistency in timelines, the eerily familiar baby photo in a pamphlet, it haunted her. But with no proof and no access to their files, she had no case. Still, she wrote it all down. And waited. Years passed. Her bank account dwindled. Hope frayed. Eventually, needing income, and perhaps seeking comfort in routine, Marina returned to nannying. She cared for children again, kissed scraped knees, packed lunches, painted rainbows on tiny cheeks. But in every child's smile, she looked for her own. Then, on a cloudless summer morning, she got a call. A couple in the Northern District, well off, professional, kind, needed a full-time nanny for their 8-year-old son. The boy's name? Noah. The gates of the Lancaster home swung open with a soft hum. Marina stepped through them with a professional calm she had perfected over the years, but something inside her chest stirred. Maybe it was the garden, the way the sun hit the stepping stones, or maybe it was the quiet echo of hope she had long tried to silence. The house was a minimalist modern structure, full of glass and sharp lines, but softened with blooming lavender and the sound of wind chimes at the door. A woman opened it before Marina could knock. "Hi, you must be Marina," the woman said warmly. "I'm Evelyn. Come in, please." Evelyn Lancaster was in her early 40s, composed but kind-eyed. She led Marina through an airy living room to the kitchen where a man, Harold, her husband, was finishing a cup of coffee. He stood, offered a handshake, and smiled politely. "We're grateful you came on such short notice," Evelyn said. "Noah's a sweet kid, but he's quiet around new people. He takes time." Marina nodded with a smile. "I understand completely." She had cared for dozens of children, shy ones, rowdy ones, anxious ones. Each different. Each complex. But none, she feared, like this one. They walked upstairs together, Evelyn pointing out rooms, explaining routines. She stopped at the end of the hall and knocked gently. "Noah, sweetheart?" she called. "Your new nanny is here." Marina's heart thudded in her chest. The door opened slowly. And there he was. A boy seated on a woven rug surrounded by Lego pieces. He looked up at her with wide, dark eyes the color of storm-washed earth. Black hair. High cheekbones. That same faint cleft in the chin. Marina stopped breathing. The room blurred. It was him. He looked exactly like Leo. "Hi," the boy said shyly. "Are you the babysitter?" Marina blinked rapidly, forcing herself to respond, to not collapse in the doorway. "Yes," she said softly. "I'm Marina. It's nice to meet you, Noah." The first day was quiet. Marina played it safe, staying composed, asking only gentle questions. Noah was indeed shy, watchful, polite, but hesitant. Yet there was a rhythm to him, a way he tilted his head when he thought, the way he laughed from his belly when something surprised him. It wasn't just similar to Leo. It was Leo. She knew it. In the marrow of her bones, she knew it. But she also knew she had to be careful. If she was wrong, she'd shatter herself all over again. And if she was right? The truth would need to be uncovered like fragile glass under dust. Not shattered with accusations. Over the next few days, Marina stayed alert, noting every habit, every trait. Noah preferred picture books over screens. He hummed while he drew. He always kissed the back of his hand before bedtime, something she had done with Leo as a baby when tucking him in. And then, 3 days into the job, she saw it. He leaned forward to pick up a toy, and the back of his left ear caught the light. A faint, crescent-shaped birthmark. Her hand flew to her mouth. It was identical. The moment passed, but Marina's world had tilted permanently. She was a dam under pressure, aching to burst with truth. But she needed more. She needed proof. When Evelyn came home later that day, Marina smiled casually and asked, "Do you keep a lot of Noah's baby pictures? I love tracking children's growth, so fascinating." Evelyn beamed. "Oh yes, we have an album. I'll bring it out." Marina sat at the kitchen island, heart racing, as Evelyn returned with a thick leather-bound book. She opened it with pride, flipping through the earliest pages. And there he was. Same thick hair. Same sleepy smile. Same dimple on the right cheek. Same crib she once owned. It hit her like a tidal wave. The photos, the timestamps, everything aligned. Even the little giraffe plushie in his crib was identical to the one she'd bought during her 3rd trimester. Her hands trembled, but she smiled. "This is a beautiful album," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. That night, Marina stayed awake long after midnight. On her desk lay a journal filled with the names of every institution she had investigated over the years. And there it was. Bridewood Center for Family Care, the same agency the Lancasters had used, as Evelyn had casually mentioned earlier when chatting about adoption costs. The same place Marina had once visited undercover, where red flags waved like banners and no one asked questions about where the children really came from. She closed her eyes, the pieces snapping together like cruel puzzle parts. This wasn't fate. This was theft. She spent the next several nights assembling everything: old police reports, Leo's baby photos, timelines, the journal she'd kept obsessively. She took screenshots of photos from the Lancaster home album. Every detail had to be precise. Then she made a decision. She would tell them. Not with anger. With truth. With a mother's need for light. The following Sunday, she asked Evelyn and Harold to sit down with her. Her hands shook as she laid out the photos. As she showed the birthmark. The timelines. The records. The adoption agency's irregularities. Evelyn stared, pale as parchment. Harold stood silent. "I'm not here to accuse," Marina said, her voice cracking. "I know you love him. And I can't imagine how this must feel. But I believe, deep in my soul, that Noah is my son. That he is Leo." Evelyn pressed trembling fingers to her lips. "We didn't know," she whispered. "The agency told us he had been left at a hospital. That no family came forward. We believed them." Harold's voice was thick with emotion. "We paid a donation. We thought we were helping." "I believe you," Marina said. "But now. We have to know for sure." They agreed, after a long, tearful conversation, to a DNA test. Noah, they said, deserved the truth too. In the days that followed, Marina oscillated between nausea and hope. She worked as usual, smiling through story time, wiping jelly from Noah's chin, watching his chest rise and fall as he napped. She whispered, "I'm here," every time he fell asleep. She no longer looked at him as a nanny. She looked at him as a mother, standing just outside the threshold of home. Waiting. The envelope came on a Thursday morning, delivered in a plain manila sleeve, bearing no trace of the emotional bomb it carried inside. Evelyn had offered to receive the results at her home. "Whatever it says," she had told Marina with watery eyes, "we read it together. As a family." Now, the envelope lay untouched on the coffee table. Evelyn sat with Harold, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Marina was beside them, barely breathing. Every nerve in her body thrummed like a tight wire. This was the moment she had lived for. Fought for. Hoped for. Harold picked up the envelope, tore the seal, and removed the folded paper inside. His eyes skimmed the words. Then he froze. Evelyn leaned in. Marina's heart threatened to burst. Finally, Harold looked up, his voice breaking. "It's a match," he whispered. "He's your son." Marina covered her face, the sob erupting from her chest like a lifetime of grief being shaken loose. Evelyn reached for her without hesitation, pulling her into an embrace that felt both broken and whole. None of them spoke for several minutes. The truth had arrived, and it had changed everything. That evening, Marina sat on her porch alone, clutching a baby photo of Leo in one hand and the DNA results in the other. She stared at the night sky, stars blurred by her tears. He was alive. He had been with her, unknowingly, all along. For years she had dreamed of this moment. She'd imagined sirens and rescues, courtroom confessions, dramatic reunions in public squares. But this was quiet. It was tender. It was complicated. Because now came the hardest part. Telling Noah. The following day, they met with the child psychologist recommended by Evelyn's friend. Dr. Langston was gentle but firm, a woman with salt and pepper curls and a voice like velvet. This won't be a one-time conversation, she explained to them. It will be a series of truths, revealed carefully. You'll need to follow his lead. Let him ask questions. Let him feel everything he needs to feel. Harold looked shaken. What if he doesn't want to know her? What if it confuses him too much? Dr. Langston answered with compassion. It will confuse him. It should. But confusion isn't the enemy. Hiding truth is. Marina nodded, swallowing hard. I just want to meet him. As his mother. Not as the babysitter. Not anymore. Evelyn squeezed her hand. And you will. They sat Noah down 2 days later in the sunroom, the one with the globe lamp and the fish tank he loved to stare into after dinner. Dr. Langston was present, seated calmly beside the parents and Marina. Noah, Evelyn began softly, there's something important we want to talk to you about. The boy blinked, setting down his drawing. What is it? Evelyn looked at Marina and gave a small nod. Marina took a breath that felt like it pulled from her soul. You know how you've always called me Marina, she said gently. And I've always taken care of you. But what you don't know is that a long time ago, when you were very little, you were someone else's baby. You were my baby. Noah tilted his head. Like when I was born. Yes, she whispered, barely holding back tears. Your name was Leo. I was your mom. But one day, something very bad happened, and you were taken from me. I've been looking for you ever since. The boy frowned, confusion clouding his face. But I'm Noah. You're not my mom. Dr. Langston stepped in, calmly. It's okay to feel confused, Noah. What Marina is telling you is something very big. But it's true. She didn't stop loving you. She never stopped looking for you. Why didn't I stay with her? He asked, turning to Evelyn and Harold. Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes. Because we didn't know, sweetheart. We thought you didn't have a family. We loved you from the moment we saw you. We still do. Nothing changes that. Marina leaned forward, her hands folded in her lap. I don't want to take you away from anyone, she said, voice cracking. I just want to be part of your life again. I want to be your mom too. If you'll let me. Noah was silent. His lip trembled. Then, softly, can I still live here? Harold nodded immediately. Of course. Can I still call you Mom and Dad? He asked Evelyn and Harold. Evelyn held him close. You can call us whatever makes you feel safe. Noah turned to Marina, eyes searching. Do I have to call you Mom too? You don't have to do anything, Marina said gently. But one day, if it feels right, I would be honored. He studied her, eyes wide and unreadable. Then, in a whisper, did you really sing to me when I was a baby? Marina's breath hitched. Every night. He nodded slowly, still unsure, but not afraid. Over the next few weeks, the rhythm of their lives changed. The Lancasters arranged for Marina to move into a small guest house on their property. That way, she was near, but not intrusive. She resumed nanny duties at first, allowing Noah to adjust without overwhelming him with change. They built bridges slowly, shared meals, evening walks, storytelling nights. Sometimes, Noah would sit beside Marina without speaking, just watching her. Other times, he asked questions. Why did someone take me? Were you scared? What was I like as a baby? Each time, Marina answered with love. She showed him the baby blanket she had kept for 8 years. The first booties. The drawing he'd made in the womb, captured during an ultrasound. Noah began to smile more. And then, one quiet morning while they were painting rocks for the garden, he said it. "Marina?" "Yes, sweetheart?" He looked up from his paintbrush. "Can I call you Mom now?" Marina froze. Her brush dropped. Tears filled her eyes. She reached for him, holding him tight. "Only if you mean it." "I do," he whispered into her shoulder. "I really do." The boy she thought she had lost forever was now beside her, painting turtles and asking if her favorite color was still green. It was. But now, her new favorite color? The soft orange of sunrise on her son's face. Even as the laughter of Leo, now proudly calling himself Leo Noah, filled Marina's world with new color, the shadows that had stolen him all those years ago still loomed. The truth may have brought healing to their small blended family, but it had also unearthed a secret far larger, more dangerous, than any of them had imagined. The Brightwood Center for Family Care. The name echoed in Marina's mind like a wound that hadn't fully closed. She hadn't forgotten the sinking feeling she got when she first walked through its polished halls posing as a potential adopter. The way they glossed over the details. The evasive answers. The photographs of wide-eyed children lined up like catalog items. Now, with Leo's identity confirmed and his adoption proven to be rooted in fraud, Marina knew she couldn't turn away. There were other children out there. Other mothers still crying into pillows every night. And she refused to let them go unheard. With Evelyn and Harold's full support, Marina contacted the state's Special Investigations Unit, delivering every shred of evidence she had collected over the years. Records, photos, journal entries, and most importantly, proof that Leo had been stolen and illegally adopted under the guise of a donation-based placement. What she thought might be a single, rogue agency quickly unraveled into something far more horrifying. The detective assigned to the case, a woman named Agent Priya Hale, had seen her share of darkness. But the Brightwood case struck her differently. "They've been operating under the radar for years," she told Marina during one late-night call. "On paper, everything looks legitimate. But behind the curtain, it's trafficking. Disguised as generosity." "How many children?" Marina asked, voice trembling. "We don't know yet. But the deeper we dig, the worse it gets." The story broke on the local news a week later. A single line across the screen changed the town forever. Breaking: Coastal Adoption Center under investigation for illegal child trafficking. The report showed blurred footage of Brightwood's closed gates, the line of police cars, and scattered shots of paperwork being wheeled into evidence vans. Within hours, Marina's phone rang nonstop. Mothers, fathers, siblings, strangers. People who had heard her story, either through police networks or whispers in the town, and were now hoping their pain wasn't just an isolated tragedy. A town hall was organized at the Ember Shore Community Center. Marina wasn't sure she could attend. But Evelyn insisted. "You're not going to tell your story," she said. "You're going to speak for all of them. The ones who never got the chance." The gymnasium was full that night, rows of folding chairs, tear-stained faces, notepads clenched in trembling hands. Marina stood at the front, clutching a photo of Leo as a baby. Not the one from the Lancasters' album. Her own. The one she kept in her wallet for 8 years. When she spoke, her voice was soft at first. Raw. "I was told that my son had vanished. That he was likely gone forever. But he wasn't. He was right here, living across town under a different name, with people who didn't even know he had been stolen." She glanced toward Evelyn and Harold, who sat with Leo between them, arms linked. "I don't blame the adoptive family. They were deceived too. But the ones who took him, the ones who profited from my grief, they must be held accountable." She paused. Then said the words that shook the room. "My story had a miracle ending. Most don't. But that's why we have to speak. Loudly. Until no more children disappear without a trace." The crowd rose in applause. Some people cried. Others came forward to share their own suspicions, stories, fears. The dam had broken. And the flood brought justice with it. Over the following weeks, Agent Hale and her team launched a full-scale investigation. Hidden bank accounts. Forged medical records. Dozens of donation-based adoptions that bypassed all legal screening. Arrests were made, 7 in total, including the Brightwood director and 2 staff members known for falsifying documents. Children were identified, families contacted. Marina was called to testify as a key witness. In court, she spoke not as a victim, but as a mother. My son was treated like a transaction. But he is not a product. He is a person. And every child you moved through that system deserved more than a price tag. Her testimony made headlines. Mother who found stolen son speaks out in court. More families came forward. More reunions. Some joyful. Some painful. Some impossible. But the system had cracked wide open. Despite the chaos, life at the Lancaster house began to stabilize in beautiful, small ways. Leo started drawing again, big, colorful sketches of animals with wide grins and strange hats. He made one with 2 houses connected by a rainbow, and under it, he wrote, "My mom's." Evelyn framed it and placed it over the fireplace. Harold started helping Leo build a model rocket, something Leo had mentioned in passing but never thought someone would remember. Marina took Leo for walks just like they used to when he was a baby, only now, they talked about stars and oceans and dreams. She told him stories of the past, gently but truthfully, allowing him to ask what he needed. He still called Evelyn and Harold Mom and Dad. But now, when he called out Mom, and Marina turned, it didn't surprise him anymore. It felt right. One night, Marina tucked Leo into bed in the guest house after a movie night. He looked up at her sleepily. "Do you still sing that lullaby?" he asked. Marina froze. Then smiled. "I never stopped." She leaned down and whispered the tune she had once hummed to his infant body, cradled in her arms as snow fell outside their tiny apartment. His eyelids fluttered closed. And Marina, tears in her eyes, kissed his forehead. For the first time in years, she didn't cry out of loss. She cried from love that had found its way home. Spring in Embershore came with soft breezes and the scent of salt from the sea. The town, once quiet in its routines and silences, now pulsed with new energy, an awareness that the hidden corners of the world could hold pain, but also unimaginable miracles. In one little yellow house on a quiet street, Leo Noah Mateo was growing. He ran barefoot through the backyard garden, chasing a soccer ball between rose bushes and wildflowers. His laugh was a melody that had once been missing, and now it played daily, louder, freer. Inside, Marina sat at the table with Evelyn, the 2 women moving in sync like they'd been sharing space for decades, not just months. Harold was in the kitchen, making his famous lemon-glazed chicken, while Leo set out mismatched napkins and made silly faces into the mirror. The family wasn't traditional. It wasn't defined by biology or paperwork. It was defined by love, resilience, and the choice to stay connected, even when the world gave them every reason to splinter. 6 months had passed since the DNA test confirmed the impossible. Since then, Leo had grown more confident. He started calling Marina Mom more easily, though sometimes he used Mimi when he was feeling especially playful. Evelyn had helped him build a scrapbook of memories, photos from both sides of his life, stitched together like a quilt. He didn't understand everything yet. He didn't need to. All he knew was that he was loved deeply. By 2 mothers. By 1 father. And by a community that had watched a broken story become something rare and whole. Marina had been offered interviews, TV appearances, even a book deal. But she declined them all. "I didn't fight to become a headline," she told Agent Hale when they met for coffee one morning. "I fought for him. That's all." Still, word of her courage traveled. She was invited to speak at a national foster care conference, where she shared her story not as a victim, but as an advocate. "There are thousands of parents like me," she said. "Mothers who wake up with silence beside them. Fathers who look into crowds for a face they've only seen in dreams. Let's not wait for a miracle to bring them peace. Let's change the system before it fails them again." Her speech ended with a standing ovation. Back home, Leo watched the recording on Evelyn's laptop, eyes wide. "You're famous," he whispered with awe. "No," Marina said, ruffling his hair. "You are. I just got lucky enough to be your mom twice." In time, a new rhythm formed. Marina moved out of the guest house into a small blue cottage a few streets over. Close enough for Leo to visit whenever he wanted, far enough to give him consistency in his day-to-day life. They created Mom Days. Every Tuesday and Saturday, Leo stayed at Marina's. They baked banana bread, built forts, read the same dog-eared storybook until they both knew it by heart. Marina learned to stop counting what had been lost and started celebrating what was now possible. One day, while playing cards in the living room, Leo looked up and asked, "Do you think I was supposed to come back to you?" Marina swallowed hard. "I think," she said, "we were never truly apart." "Not really." He nodded. "Me too." The criminal case against the Brightwood Center concluded with 5 major convictions. Marina attended every court hearing. Evelyn and Harold came to each one. The prosecutors credited Marina's journal and persistence as the key turning point in breaking the trafficking ring. Families of rescued children came to her with letters, hugs, and tears. "You gave us the courage to look deeper," one mother told her. "You gave us our daughter back." Marina would smile, always quietly, always with that ache of understanding in her chest. She had known what it meant to have a child missing, and to have a piece of yourself gone with them. Now, she knew what it meant to come home. On Leo's 9th birthday, the entire backyard transformed into a celebration of second chances. Balloons tangled in branches. Tables filled with cupcakes and paint kits. Children ran barefoot through the grass. Neighbors came with potluck dishes and warm embraces. When it was time to blow out candles, Leo looked around the table, then up at his mom's. "Can I wish for something?" he asked. Evelyn smiled. "Of course." He closed his eyes tight. "Blue." And grinned. Marina leaned down and whispered, "What did you wish for?" He giggled. It already came true. That night, after everyone had gone and the stars blinked into view, Marina sat beside Evelyn and Harold on the porch swing. Leo was asleep upstairs, one arm draped over the stuffed fox Marina had given him on his first birthday, before everything changed. "I used to think the worst day of my life was losing him," Marina said softly. Harold nodded. "It was one of the worst days of ours too. But now," she continued, looking at the glow from Leo's bedroom window, "I think it was also the day that led us all to each other." Evelyn reached for her hand. "Sometimes the story life writes is better than the one we planned." They sat there in silence, hearts woven together not by circumstance, but by choice. By healing. By a shared boy with 2 names, 1 smile, and 3 people who would walk through fire for him. And as the wind carried the scent of sea salt and wild jasmine through Embershore, Marina whispered to the night what she had once whispered to her baby boy in the dark. "You were never lost, my love. You were on your way back to me the whole time."